Sadnam. We are Jen and Ramtin from Heart Center Revolution.
Our intention with this podcast is to share the best of Kundalini yoga and conscious living with you so you can live a more heart-centered life. Satnam, and welcome back to the Heart Centered Revolution podcast for episode 44. This is a unique episode as it'll be just me on it. So it's a solo Jen episode. But today I have an exciting discussion to share with you about Seva, or selfless service. This is an important part of our yoga practice, something we do off the mat. And then at the end of this episode, I'm going to lead you through a very fun pranayam that's a mix actually between singing and breathing. And this pranayam has a really good cooling and calming effect. And we're also going to talk about how you can get a free guided meditation video from Ramtin and I. So let's get into the discussion. So a couple years ago, Ramtin and I served as TAs, or teacher's assistants, for teacher training. It was probably 5 years after we completed our own teacher training. And so we were there to support, we each had a group of 6 or 7 students that we were kind of their point person if they had any questions. We helped them study for the test, that kind of a thing. We reviewed their homework. If you don't know, teacher training for Kundalini yoga is a very involved process. There's 200 hours of instruction. You have to create a 6-week course and a full workshop. You do practice classes, and you do sadhanas yourself. You have to complete at least one 40-day sadhana, which is a spiritual practice. And so it's a very deep, involved process. It really helps you shed things that are no longer serving you, connect to your deepest self, to your highest self. It's hard to even put into words how complex and deep and miraculous the process is. And so to go through it as a student is one thing, and then we just had the honor, 5 years later, to go through it as TAs. And so we were at a different place in our lives. We picked up different things. There were different lead teachers, so different topics were highlighted over other topics. It was just an amazing process to go through the teachings again and the experience again, being in a different place in our lives. And one of the things that really stuck out to me the second time around when I was a TA that I kind of glossed over the first time was the concept of Seva. It's spelled S-E-V-A. And now Seva is not unique to yoga, but it is part of the yogic teachings. And Seva translates to something like selfless service. So it's the idea of doing something for someone else, for something else, for an entity outside of yourself, without the expectation of reward, acknowledgement. You're just doing it for the act of Seva itself. A prime example in Kundalini yoga teachings is that people will go, I guess it's not Kundalini yoga teachings, but within the Kundalini yoga community, is people will go to the Gurdwara or the temple, the Sikh temple, and will wash the floors before their spiritual practices are there or their religious practices are there. Or afterwards, there is a lunch that is available to everyone. And so people will volunteer to either purchase the lunch or serve the lunch. And so the idea is this service to serve your community without the expectation of a thank you or anything in advance. Anything in return. What was interesting about these discussions we had about Seva in the teacher training setting is that there is some Seva that is expected of students. And so it was an interesting tension or practice to watch our lead trainer, who is from India. Her name is Priya Jain. And so Seva is an accepted part of culture in India, from my understanding. And so it's easier for people from Indian and Eastern cultures who are more collectivistic in their mindset to kind of just get that it's an expected part of your participation in a group setting to do things like sweep the floors, to clean the bathroom, and things like that. But from a Western mind, from a Western perspective, which I was coming from and many of the students are coming from, when we sit and have a discussion about Seva and the importance of being of service to the community, to this process of teacher training that we're all going through. And then we were broken up into teams, and we were given like Seva tasks, basically. So part of your participation or the expectations of teacher training is that you do these acts of Seva. And again, from a Western mindset, it seems like chores, right? So it's cleaning the bathroom, sweeping the floors, kind of getting the yoga studio all set up for the next day. And so it could be there was definitely attitude's the wrong word because everyone there wanted to participate, but just a feeling like it was a chore or a sense of heaviness. Around like at the end of a long day, these 5 people or 6 people, it's our responsibility to stay and kind of sort out the yoga studio so we could all come back in the next day for another long day and have it be reset. And I think that subconsciously there was an idea that when you're a student, most students are paying a good deal in tuition and investing their time. And we're just not used to being expected to care for the environment. We're used to, meaning the room that we stay in, the space that we stay in. In the Western culture, at least in my experience, especially if I'm paying for a class or a course or something, the expectation is that someone else is going to care for that environment for you. So in teacher training, there's always a little resistance, whether it's no one directly is going to say, I don't want to do this, but there's always a little resistance for us, especially with the Western mindset, to on your day of Seva, when it's your time to clean up, to stay late and to do it with that tone or that attitude of selfless service, of this is my contribution to the group. This is my contribution to the divine, to all of our going through this process, and to not expect like a thank you or anything in advance. So while most of us had done acts of selfless service in our lives before, I think this particular experience of cleaning up a yoga studio, again, in a place where we were paying to receive a course, it just provided an extra layer of challenge and like reframing what that act of sweeping the floor was or cleaning the bathroom was. And, instilling some humility, I think, and also some collective consciousness around, serving one another in the group, or serving the group consciousness, serving the mission we had there as a collective. And so if you were doing these actions with that mindset, with that frame, that is selfless service, that is Seva. But if you're doing it because the teacher told you to and you had to before you could go home, then that's not Seva. That's just doing a chore because you were told to, and you don't want the social repercussions. So that kind of gives you an idea of what Seva is. And so I just want to highlight that it's not just an action, it's also the mindset that goes behind the action. And now selfless service or Seva oftentimes looks like charity work or donations or things like that, where you're really giving of yourself, you're giving without the expectation of receiving. And the idea is that both in that exchange, both in cleaning the yoga studio or in volunteering or just sitting with a friend or someone who's hurting. I think of a time when I was walking out of an apartment complex and there was a stranger, I didn't know her, and she was sitting on the curb and she was just crying. And so I sat down next to her and just listened to her story. And obviously I had no expectation of getting anything from her. I just wanted to support her in that moment and kind of help her figure out next steps, because that's just, I guess I'm nosy. I just try to help people. I also was a little older than her and had some resources that she could use. But that's the idea of selfless service, of asking in that moment, how can you serve the other person? How can you serve the moment? How can you serve the collective? And the idea being that both you and the other person, or whoever's on the receiving end of your service, you both get closer to the divine consciousness. You both get closer to God. You both receive a blessing by that selfless giving of something, or selfless giving of yourself. And now this idea of Seva, whereby serving the moment selflessly kind of connects you more directly to God, or the divine, is a type of karma yoga. And so there's many different types of yoga. Kundalini yoga is under one umbrella of like Raj or Hatha yoga. And then Dharma yoga is a whole other type of yoga. So just as a reminder, yoga just means to connect with the divine. It doesn't necessarily mean you're doing exercise or anything like that. So karma yoga is connecting to the divine through service of others and through community. So you can think of like Mother Teresa. I don't know if she ever did yoga a day in her life, like sitting on a mat, learning yoga. But she was a karma yogi. Like her life was about selfless service. And she, I would bet, connected to the divine through that selfless service. So going back to, I'm a TA, I'm going through teacher training a second time. I'm hearing this discussion about Seva a second time. And it just hit differently. I think I had more experience. I had maybe unconditioned some of my own Western capitalistic, like more transactional expectations. And so I heard two really important things in that conversation about Seva. And one I think directly relates to what Seva is, and one is a little bit of an extension. So we'll go one and two. So the first thing that really hit me about Seva, and particularly in this example about cleaning the yoga studio, right? Because I know I had resistance at the end of a really long, like these are like 10-hour days, sometimes 15-hour days. So to stay 30 minutes to kind of sweep the floors. And I'm not the person who cleans our house. I'm not good at chores. I just never have been. It's never been part of my routine. Like I'm working on it. I'm working on getting better habits with Ramtin's help and encouragement. But yeah, it's just something that is not a strength of mine. And I didn't develop the habit young. And so now I'm having to kind of do the work to instill better habits as an adult. And that's relevant because then I'm sitting and, the expectation is that certain days that I stay and help clean the studio, and I don't mind doing it, but I don't feel the selfless service piece of it. Until Priya, I think she made this comment, or maybe it was just a thought that I had, and Priya is the teacher who is discussing Seva. And it's just this idea that the studio is our home. And so just as you would straighten up your home if you're going to have guests over, hopefully not so that you don't feel judged, but just so that you can all have a nice, comfortable place to spend time in, that you can make that contribution to the connections and the conversations and everyone enjoying their time. So just like you would clean your home and create a lovely space to have your friends or family over, the same way with the studio is your yoga home. And so to go there and to light a candle or to bring flowers or to clean the floor or to clean the bathroom, it's also taking ownership of this space and to creating a space where that upliftment and connection can happen. And so there was something that just clicked for me about this particular act of Seva to kind of relate it to this being all of our homes, and we just take turns like cleaning the home so that we can all enjoy it, that really connected. And I think that over the next couple weeks after I had that conversation and kind of deconstructed one of my barriers to Seva in this form of kind of caring for the environment, I really had an epiphany. And this is kind of the second part of Seva, which might not be Seva specifically, but it was a healing journey for me that came from the Seva discussion, is that selfless service or serving the physical environment is a way to connect with the divine if you're doing it with that intention. So I started looking at caring for my physical body. So things like my skincare and taking care of my hair and styling my hair and cleaning the bathroom and doing the dishes and all the things that I felt were chores. And so I had resistance towards doing. I realized that if I looked at my physical body as one little drop of the divine in this masterful divine universe, And my body is my vehicle for my spirit and my soul and my work here on the planet. And so taking care of it can be a service of the divine, because I am a part of the divine and I am worthy of that. And then the same with my environment, with my home. Myself, my husband, and my daughter, all parts of the divine, live in this home. So if I take care of the home, cleaning the bathroom, doing the dishes, doing the laundry, with this eye of I am serving the divine by preparing the environment, by preparing my physical body to have connection to divine spirit, to have connection to one another, to have enlightened experiences, then that is Seva also. And so I believe that it's Seva also. Now for me, this was really healing because I'm someone who I grew up being uncomfortable looking at myself in the mirror. I don't particularly like the way I look. I never really attached my identity or value to the way I looked, but I also kind of neglected, not hygiene, but just like I never really wore makeup. I never really styled my hair. I never really put my best foot forward as far as my appearance because I didn't like looking in the mirror. And the longer I looked in the mirror, the worse I felt. So I just kind of, little mascara, brush my hair, move on with my day. So I was avoiding some discomfort. And that just was a habit that started as a teenager. So then I go through, 2 rounds of teacher training, and now I can look in the mirror and I can see that I have beauty within myself, just like everyone does. And it doesn't make me feel bad to look in the mirror, right? But I don't have the habits of caring for my physical appearance. And I don't think you have to wear makeup, but just things that I care about, like taking care of my eyebrows, doing my hair in the daytime, like making sure my outfit doesn't have any food spills on it, things like just basic things. These were not things that were in my habit. It wasn't in my habit to care for my physical being. And so what I was thinking about through Seva and the connection I was making through Seva is that I was avoiding being materialistic. This was another part of it. Or I was avoiding, I think, sometimes wearing makeup or doing my hair because I don't like the attention I get for that, especially when I was younger and, I was cute and would get attention if I dressed up. And so I think I was avoiding kind of gathering attention for my physical appearance. And so I'm not suggesting taking care of yourself for that reason, although that's fine if that's what you're going for. I'm talking about, for myself, the revelation was taking care of my physical appearance out of reverence and out of caring for the divine body I've been given, and out of making it a ritual and just a way to connect with the divine, a way to connect with my highest spirit, making it magical, making it a spiritual, a spiritual ritual to just take care of my own physical appearance, take care of my home. And while this might not be exactly what's meant by Seva, because oftentimes, or Seva is almost always mentioned as care for something else, I would argue that this can be a part of Seva. I would say a subsect of Seva, where you're honoring the divine within yourself. You're honoring the divine within your own home. Even if you don't have family members that you're doing it for, you are divine and you are worthy of that care and of that selfless service. And now our current wellness trends, I feel like are hyper fixated on self-care and taking care of yourself and making sure you're doing all of these things. And so I want to highlight that it doesn't mean we don't do the other forms of Seva, where we're literally serving our community and other people. Those things are important. But what was a transitional and transformational experience for me was to look at the care of my physical body and the care of my home also as a form of Seva, and as a way to connect to the divine, and as a way to create space for beautiful experiences. And so I have been wanting to share that with you guys for a while. So I thought I'd come on and make just a quick little episode, and hopefully you can find ways to bring Seva into your practice, both where you're honoring yourself in your own physical body and home, and where you're honoring your community. One way to think about kind of what you can do is in a moment to ask, like, what can I do to serve the divine in this moment? So it might be the divine within yourself, within the physical environment, or within the person in front of you. But that's a good question to continuously ask yourself. How can I serve the divine in this moment? How can I serve the greater good in this moment? How can I serve the highest consciousness of all involved in this moment? All these questions kind of are leading you on this path of Seva. All right, now we'll transition into our pranayam for the day. So this pranayam is called whistle breath, and it is part singing and part meditation per Yogi Bhajan's instructions or his discussion of this. This pranayam helps to create balance. It helps to bring joy. It helps to help you cool and relax your nervous system, and it helps to balance your thyroid and parathyroid glands. And it's also just kind of fun to do, whereas the lion breath from last week was a little, for me, it's not as fun. My mouth gets dry. I get a little, I don't know. This one's kind of fun to do, I think. It's particularly fun to do with other people. And so if you know anyone else who's listening, or anyone else who likes pranayam, feel free to teach it to them, and then you guys can practice together, and it's really fun that way. As we start most pranayams, we're going to get into position. So go ahead and sit up nice and tall. Stretch your shoulders up, back, and down. Lift the crown of the head. Open the heart center. Really feeling nice and tall. Tucking your chin down and back just slightly. And then let's check in our breath. Check in with our breath. Not doing anything to control it, just letting it flow in and out. And we'll gently transition into long, deep breathing. So inhaling, filling up your belly. Once your belly is full, going up to your ribs, and then your chest. Exhaling the opposite direction, chest comes down, ribs knit back together, belly button back to spine. Inhaling in a wave up the body, inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the nose as the exhale moves down the body from the shoulders all the way down to the spine. Can always stay with long, deep breathing, inhaling belly, ribs, and chest. Exhaling chest, ribs, and belly. Let's take one deep breath together, inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the nose. Keep exhaling, and on your next inhale, you're going to curl your mouth and whistle as you inhale. So inhaling over a rolled tongue. Full breath in, and then exhale through the nose. Continuing with this pattern, inhaling in a whistle. Exhaling over the nose, out the nose. Long, deep breath both ways. Inhaling as a whistle, exhaling through the nose. Your eyes are closed, rolled up, looking at the third eye, at a spot between your eyebrows. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. Continue breathing at your own pace, whistling on the inhale, exhaling through the nose on the exhale. Let's take 3 more breaths together. Wherever you are, exhale completely. And we'll inhale together. Exhale. Exhale completely. Inhaling through the nose. Holding the breath, sitting up nice and tall, squeezing root lock, pulling the energy up the central channel of the body, out the crown of the head. Eyes are focused at the third eye. Exhale, relax the body, relax your breath, relax your face. Just sitting with yourself. Noticing what mental, emotional, and spiritual shifts happened as a result of this breathing pattern in just a few minutes. And blink open your eyes, knowing that this practice is always here for you when you need some cooling, calming, kind of fun pranayam. All right, so that's it for another episode of the Heart-Centered Revolution podcast. Please remember from our discussion today that whenever you're feeling down or disconnected from spirit, ask yourself in the moment, or try asking yourself in the moment, how can I serve the divine in this moment right now? And see if that action helps uplift your spirits. Because while it's supposed to be selfless service, of course, being of service also helps the server. And also remember your opportunity to get a free guided video meditation of the Laya Yoga meditation. Just leave an honest review of the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can take a screenshot of that and email it to me at jen@heartcenteredrevolution.com, and I will email you a link to a beautiful guided meditation. We love you so much. Thank you for being here, and Ramtin and I will be back on the next episode together. Sat Nam.